Dobar dan i dobrodošli u Novo Doba. Moje ime je Aleksa Grubešić i danas imam zadovoljstvo da ugostim velikog prijatelja Srbije i srpskog naroda, predsednika Međunarodne organizacije za porodicu iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država i čoveka koji ličnim primjerom svedoči kako se štiti i čuva porodica u ovim modernim vremenima, budući da je otac čak 9 dece. Moj vaš današnji gost je gospodin Brajan Braun iz Vašingtona. Mr. Braun, welcome to the new era. Thank you a lot for answering my invitation for participating in this show, and welcome to Novi Sad. First of all, and it's nice to have you here.
I always love to be in Serbia, so I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, great. That should be my first question, because I know it's not your first time that you're in Serbia. You've been here quite a while. And what brings you this time to our country?
Well, for this particular time, I was invited to be an election observer on the elections that just occurred. And I went to 2 different municipalities, visited a number of polling stations. But in the past, I've been here for a number of different events. I have some businesses that are involved in Serbia. But also for my organization, the International Organization for the Family, we've been active here in Serbia.
Ah, great. That's nice to hear, because family means a lot to us. Of course, we're also very traditional and conservative here in Serbia. But I'm interested, what's your point of view about the local elections now? I think you visited Sevojno, right? Prove me wrong. So southern part of Serbia. Yeah. What do you think about those elections? How do you see all that process?
Well, I visited 2 municipalities, Sevojna and Bajina Bašta. And I went to a number of different polling stations in each municipalities. And one thing from the perspective of an American, we have a big fight in America right now over election integrity and election fraud. And we have a new bill that President Trump has strongly supported called the Save America Act. And what that has to do with is something very simple that's normal from what I saw in your elections, but not normal in the United States. And that is that we do not require a photo ID for elections. It's not required on a federal level. Only a few states, 12 states, require it in their states. And so we have federal elections, the elections that decide the president of the United States, and people don't even need to bring a photo ID.
How is that even possible? Yeah. How can you vote without, photo on your ID? Or I think maybe there are some states that doesn't even require an ID.
Yeah, there are states that don't require an ID, or if they do, they require something that's so simple to fake. So you have both. You have different versions in every state, and it makes no sense when we have federal elections that each state could have such widely disparate requirements. And obviously, it allows for voter fraud. It allows for problems in the vote. And so we're trying to stop that by this Save America Act, which is passed our House of Representatives and now is going to the Senate. But seeing the elections here, and I think it's similar in other countries that I visited, you have a very secure election system compared to the United States. That's hard for people to understand, but your system is better than our system. We have something to learn from you.
So you would say we have a better democracy than the US?
I think
I mean, in the terms of elections.
Yeah, I think definitely when it comes to the election process, from coming into the polling station to having the finger sprayed, to checking to see whether you have voted before by seeing whether the light shines a different color. We don't have any of that. And then having to present your photo ID. I also noticed that a lot of people bring their vote slip, the little slip of paper, and I was told that they don't even have to do that, but almost everyone I saw did do that. So
it's like a form of information for people where they can vote. That's the kind of information. Where's their polling station?
Right. Yeah. Many people handed them to the poll workers, meaning it just everyone understood the process. The process was the same in both of the places that I visited. I talked to other election observers from the United States, and they said in their municipalities it was the exact same. That's a good system where you have, you know exactly what's about to happen. You have security because you have a photo ID, and people have to sign in. So for us, that was that's something that's important. To see that we have something to learn from this. And I hope that under President Trump, we will get a system that's much stronger. There are a couple other observations. I did see a number of, I believe, members of the opposition, because they had pins on the sidewalk, congregating together, and basically, if I wanted to pass, it was clear they weren't going to let me through. It was almost like attempting to sort of maybe intimidate. And so you had to walk around them, and then right across the street were the police. Now, I didn't see any incidents. I know that there were incidents. One of the incidents was the gentleman with a fake gun, and in Bajina Bašta. I was there. I didn't see this, but what I do know is that immediately when that happened, I got all of these messages saying, "You're there. You're not saying anything about this. This is clearly President Vučić's thugs." Then the news runs an article saying that that's true, and then only an hour later you find out that it was an opposition leader. So the press had followed this total lie, and then people keep repeating it, and even today people are writing to me saying, "You said that the elections were secure." I said, "Well, I said what I saw." Secondly, they said, "Well, didn't you see this picture of this video of one of the government's agents coming out with a gun?" I said, "That's not true. If you want to look it up, you can find out that this is the opposition." So that's similar to the United States.
I think they were identified those men with their name.
Right.
And everything that he was a part of opposition, how to say. And I saw, as well as you, that in the social networks, they're still writing that's like somebody from the government or from some kind of services of government, but it's not true, actually.
So for us, that whole process is very familiar, because this is what occurred to President Trump. And to be honest, many of us who are just conservative activists, you say a lie, the left, the radicals say a lie, they repeat the lie, and people believe it. Then when it comes out that it was a lie, the press doesn't cover that it's a lie. So with President Trump, all these claims that he did all of these illegal things, that we're going to throw him in jail. And then as the truth comes out, it's not true. And yet the governments, at the time, some of the state governments, especially in New York, were led by pretty radical, pretty anti-Trump folks. They kept moving forward with trying to throw the president in jail. And again, that clearly undermines democracy when lies are told and repeated and they're not corrected. At the very least, when some of these media outlets made a mistake on the identity of this man with a gun, they should have corrected themselves, and I've yet to see it.
Yeah, and one man in the history said that 100 times repeated lie becomes truth.
Right.
You know, so yeah. I think we're witnessing something like that right now. So would you say that this kind of process should be maybe implemented in the States? Are they like positive? Do you see it as a positive ones which the states should implement in your laws?
I think that the key part of having photo ID, that is a key aspect of the Save America Act, the bill that's already passed the House. I'm somewhat optimistic that we'll be able to pass the Senate, and I know 100% that President Trump would sign that bill into law. There are some differences, however, because in many states we allow mail-in voting. That opens up a whole other area of problems.
That was actually a big thing in the 2020, right?
Exactly. So the mail-in voting allows for, there can be election fraud in many different ways, from someone mailing in a vote that isn't actually theirs, from not needing ID, because how are you going to have ID? Some of this, a lot of this is corrected in this new Save America Act, where you would have to at least send in an ID, a notarized ID, in order to be able to vote mail-in. Personally, I prefer paper ballots. I prefer no mail-in voting. I think you should be able to come to the election, the day of the election, and vote. That's a part of living in a republic. You should be willing and able to do that. I understand that occasionally people won't be able to do that, but changing the whole system for mail-in voting opens it up to all sorts of problems, and I think we've seen those problems. And again, we've also seen the problems with paper ballots are tried and true. That's the way that you can be sure that someone has the paper ballot, they sign the paper ballot, they put it in the box is secured, which again, I saw the box is secured, and then there's two different vote tallying processes here in Serbia. I think that is a preferable model than opening it up to the problems of technology. Whether you have someone changing the votes, whether that's possible or not, there are all sorts of other problems with introducing computers into the middle of the system. So again, that is not something that is a part of the Save America Act. That's my own personal belief. I like paper ballots. That may be down the line, but the first step is the Save America Act and getting voter ID throughout the United States.
Nice. I get it completely. So you are president of the International Organization for Family, right? And as I said in the beginning as well, father of 9 children, which I congratulate on that, first of all. What is the point of your organization? I mean, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve with it? And what's the main course of acting of your organization?
So the International Organization for the Family was founded in 1999, and our mission is to unite and equip leaders around the world to promote and protect the natural family. Why do we use the term natural family? Because in Article 16 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that is the document that arose out of the end of World War II when the world, but especially Europe and America, were looking at how do we stop another war like this from happening again? And it was attempting to lay down what are the fundamental rights of all peoples all across the world. Article 16 lays out the right to form a family of a man and a woman and any children that they might bear. It's right there in this document. So often, some conservatives look at the United Nations and supranational organizations and are very worried, and I think often rightfully so, that they're trying to take over the sovereignty of the nation state. But that wasn't what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was doing. What it was saying is that there are certain core rights and principles that all people can agree on. And one of them is that the family is the fundamental social unit of society and is deserving of protection by the state. All around the world, that's the case. This is where we learn to be good people. This is where we learn to be good citizens. This is the basis of having a good nation, is to have strong families. So we exist to do what we can to help make that happen. Those that would redefine the family, those that would redefine life, those that would undermine the rights of parents, and especially religious liberty around the world. So all of this we work on, and one of the primary ways we do it is we have these large conferences called the World Congress of Families. And we try and bring together people around the world in different locations. We've had a major World Congress of Families, for example, in Budapest with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He hosted us, and we had...
He's also a strong supporter of family values.
Of course, and I worked together with the Ministry of Families there and have been very happy. They put now 6% of their GDP in the promotion of the family. They realized that one of the key problems that Europe and the West overall faces is a demographic problem. Not enough children. And part of that, you have to understand, these are not problems that are in isolation. Part of the reason that you see attempts at mass migration and mass immigration into different countries is people think, hey, we're going to solve the problem that we're not having babies, so we're going to bring people in from other countries in huge numbers. And Viktor Orban is one of the early leaders who realized that this was an absolute failing method of dealing with the population problem. Instead, what Viktor Orban and the government of Hungary has done is devote itself to making it easier, to helping families form, to making it easier to raise families. For example, eliminating the income tax on mothers who have over 3 children. So many specifics they've done, and they've had their policies have had an impact. They are increasing their birth rate when other countries are decreasing the birth rate.
But do you think that's like a financial problem, or there's more like a cultural, religious problem? We see that in Islamic states they have higher population, higher demographics, also in African states, but we're talking about poor people.
Right.
So what's the main problem? I don't think it's financial problem.
No, I think that all the problems go together. At the root, there is a spiritual problem, and part of it has to do with the ideology of radical individualism or liberalism, in which people think that children are a problem. That's going to mess up my life. It's not. I need to live. I need to not be burdened by this problem. So it's seeing human life as a problem. I do think that clearly the spiritual malaise, the falling away of people, whether you're Orthodox or Catholic or Protestant or Orthodox Jewish, whatever you are, what we've seen in the West is, up until recently, I will say I'm more optimistic, up until recently, a decline in church affiliation and church attendance. Again, that's turning around, but there was a long movement from the 50s to about 15 years ago where again, the forces of radical secularism were pushing forward, saying at some point religion won't matter at all. The identity of the people won't matter at all. It won't matter whether you're, whether Serbia is Orthodox or doesn't believe anything. It'll stay the same. Well, no. A part of who we are as a people is based on, especially in the West, Christianity. And
how would you define that? As ideology of globalism, radical left? How would you define it? Like in a word or maybe in an ideological form?
Well, I think at the fundamental root is the notion that we are atomized individuals and that we're disconnected from our culture and tradition. Our culture and tradition are what pull us back from living out our full potential. What we need to do is to embrace multiculturalism, embrace the notion that culture, tradition, history, religion are not that important, and free ourselves from the past. That doesn't work. And what we're seeing now in the United States is, and I think you're also seeing in other countries, you're seeing a resurgence of religious belief in young people. Because when you strip away what is most important to mankind, what is important to defining who we are, what is our relationship with truth, with a capital T? Where does truth come from? What is our relationship with the mystical bonds of memory that go back through our own peoples, through history? What connects us? At the root of that is a spiritual issue. And so, of course, that movement to move people away from belief in ultimate meaning also led to the breakdown and decline of the family. I want to do what I want to do. I want to do it when I want to do it, and I want it now. That isn't what a stable society is based on. It's based on true love. True love means I'm willing to give some things up for a greater good. I don't want to take everything I want at any time I want it. I'm willing to devote myself as a father to taking care of my wife and children. That is a noble thing. That is not a bad thing. Or as a mother, I want to devote myself to, as much as I can, taking care of my children and being a partner with my husband. Not just saying, I'm going to do what I'm going to do whenever I want to do it. Sometimes you have to sacrifice. And I do think that the next generation, what we're seeing a resurgence, especially with Catholics and Orthodox. You're seeing all these young men come back into Orthodoxy in the United States.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. That's very interesting. I was talking about that with Mark Ivanjo, who's also a guest here in my show, from Republicans for National Renewal, and he said a lot of Americans, actually from Protestantism mostly, not to say convert, but getting baptized in the Orthodox Church. That's a very interesting trend.
You're seeing both. You're seeing that also within Catholicism. I'm Catholic, and I've worked very hard. Part of what we've done in the World Congress of Families is to try and create very strong relations in the Orthodox world. I've been to Mount Athos, I think, 7 times now, and I've been blessed to have very close friendships with many of those within the Orthodox Church. We did one of our World Congress of Families in Tbilisi, Georgia, and I was able to meet the Patriarch Ilya. And one of the things Patriarch Ilya did after the World Congress of Families was to say he would be the godfather of every 3rd child or more. because he saw what you said, that this is a spiritual problem, but there are practical solutions. Georgia also increased its birth rate with Patriarch Ilya's intervention. And for any Georgians that might be watching, my heart goes out to you, because Patriarch Ilya just passed away, and Georgia's been in a period of mourning. But, and here in Serbia, meeting with the Orthodox Church all over the world, we've been able to make good Orthodox friends. So what I see, especially for the World Congress of Families, the International Organization for the Family, it's very important in the West for Christians to unite together in support of the family, to realize that this is something that we all must defend. We have our differences. We're not trying to create some new ecumenical Christianity. I love the fact that we are able to discuss and have debates, but there's also a core on which we agree, that countries that are traditionally Christian countries, the people have a lot of agreement. And increasingly what we're seeing from the hard left, from the Open Society Foundation, George Soros, before President Trump stopped it, from USAID, all over the world, what we were seeing was an attack on basic Christian values, on the Christian understanding of family. It's not hateful to stand up and say, I believe that marriage is the union of a man and a woman. That's not hateful. That's what I believe. If you want to argue with me, we can have a rational argument.
But they see it as hateful. I mean, they see it as, I don't know, something you should not talk about,
Right.
That radical left.
They do, but what I found,
They say there's no two genders or something like that. I mean, silly stuff, ridiculous stuff.
But what I've found is that even the most ridiculous statements, like a 9-year-old boy can become a girl. I mean, this is absurd. A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. We all know this in the basis of who we are as human beings. We know this is true, and yet a lot of people are weak. They don't necessarily believe it, but they don't want to be outside the mainstream. So people nod their heads. And then what happens? We start having the mutilation of children. In the West, we have children going through surgeries that can never be undone. So you can't take some medicines as a child without the approval of your parents, and of course you're not allowed to do drugs or these other things, but the minute you say I'm a boy but I should be a girl, you're going to get a surgery that will change your body forever, and the state allows that. Luckily, we have been able to ban the mutilation of children in the United States in a number of states, and it's increasingly happening around the world.
But that's not on a federal level. That's just on the level of states, right?
I will tell you this. President Trump, through an executive order, stopped any money coming from our health department and from the U.S. government to any state that allows this sort of evil. We should call it as it is. It's an evil. At the beginning, you say something, well, this is ridiculous. Then they keep moving forward, and it's no longer ridiculous. The statement itself is ridiculous, but now you're harming the most innocent and vulnerable human beings, children, in ways that can never be fixed. So this is one of the issues where I think a lot of people sort of woke up and realized, look, we were quiet. We were worried that we would be called names on the internet, that they would say we were bigots just because we believe in the traditional family. A lot of people woke up and said, even people that weren't particularly religious, J.K. Rowling is not religious. She knows that this is wrong, and she's been very out front in condemning this whole transgender ideology. And she's been attacked, but she's been very strong. So I think we have a great global coalition that is emerging of people who realize the importance of God, family, and country. And those three basic realities, there should be respect for, there should be respect for difference, but what we should not have is governments undermining any of those things, undermining the ability for people to live out their faith, undermining the ability to form families and have the family recognized by the state for what it is, undermining the history of a country. Of course, we've seen time and time again from folks in organizations like the Open Society Foundation intentionally try and get rid of the traditions, the history, the culture of different countries to say, no, we're global citizens now. We need to get rid of those things. No, those are the things that make us human. That's the beauty of the world, is not taking everyone and talking about diversity in some abstract reality. Really, what diversity has done is to make everyone the same. We don't want to make everyone the same, where everything is mixed together. We want to say it's beautiful that Serbia is Serbia. It's beautiful that America is America. Every country has its own identity, and they should be able to keep that.
Yeah, I mean, beauty is in the diversity.
Exactly.
Different cultures, different languages, different ethnicities.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
you're against melting pot,
exactly.
as me
That's
as
true,
well.
True diversity, but in the United States and in parts of Europe, this whole idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we call it DEI.
DEI,
It means the opposite. So, of course, when I say I believe in true diversity, I'm a defender of true diversity. True diversity means that we keep those...
Every nation should have its country.
Exactly. It's very simple.
The people should live in that country, should value their own tradition, and people should like more travel than to go to live in another state and trying to make their rules become the rules of that state.
Yes.
I mean, that's something wrong.
And it was obvious that mass migration, mass immigration into different countries was going to have an impact on the identity of those countries. You can't bring people in from totally different cultures, hundreds of thousands of people. Now, of course, we want to take care of true refugees. Of course, we want to try and help. We're for all of that.
But when you have a lot of people moved in from one state to another, you can have cultural conflicts. I mean, that's something that naturally will happen.
And this is why I think this election coming up in Hungary is so important, because a lot of the hard left in Europe and even in the United States, they want Viktor Orban to be defeated more than anything else, because he stood up in the EU, he stood up against mass migration, he stood up for the cultural identity, the Christian identity of Hungary. At the same time, I was in Hungary speaking to many Orthodox Jews saying, we feel totally safe here. Why do we feel safe here? Because there's no radical Islam attacks on our faith here. It just doesn't happen. So those that have stood up for Christian values have, like Viktor Orban, have been able to have countries that still have their identity. And that's why on this April 12th election that's coming up, so much money has gone into trying to defeat him. From
Brussels, I mean, for Peter Magyar, for the opposition.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree on that, and on the Hungarian thing and Viktor Orban, we hope also here, all of us who are conservative, Christian, traditionally oriented, that Viktor Orban will win, and also our President Vučić has very good, very tight relations with Viktor Orban. So hopefully he will win, because he also has that politics of sovereign nation as well as we do here.
And you see Serbia. That President Trump and Marco Rubio have spoken about how important it is to have Viktor Orban remain in the position that he's in, because that has allowed us to have much closer ties with Hungary. When I first did this event with Prime Minister Orban, this World Congress of Families, many people in the United States, including within the Republican Party, had bought into this lie that somehow he was, the left had labeled him fascist, all of the same things. And some of our own people, because obviously Americans don't know a ton about Hungary, some of our own people were saying, you're going and doing an event in Hungary with Viktor Orban? But then after that event, the relationship has just steadily improved. After we did this World Congress of Families, you've seen more and more groups, CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee does an event every year there. We have great relationships with Hungary. So I think it's really a very important election, not just for Hungary, but for the world.
Yeah, but that's what most of the radical left does, they just call you fascist, and then you are undermined from any conversation, because when they call you fascist, you're like a devil, you should not be talked to, and that's it. That's how they win in that situation.
It worked for a long time. It worked where people would be silent. But again, I do think that the last election for President Trump and for what the left put against us, and the fact that they even tried to assassinate him twice, and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. At this point, many people realize that we have moved to a level of hatred from the left that I have never seen. And we've moved to a point of political violence in the United States, where the radical left is willing to encourage and at times take part in violence. So a lot of people now that are more conservative are willing to stand up. Because one thing about Americans, we want to be nice. We want to try and get along. But if you push us into a corner and you say, do what I say you're going to do or else, we're not slaves. And we're not going to be anyone's slave. We're not going to do, and so this...
I mean, when you're attacked, you have to defend yourself.
Yes, of course. And at this point, we were willing to take a lot of the, argue, well, I'm not a fascist because of this, that. You can't argue with this. What I do is I go and I debate, I say my views. If people want to try and use some sort of devil term like fascist or far right or whatever.
We're afraid because of that political correctness.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a trap, most of people, and also conservatives are in a trap of political correctness, so they're trying not to offend somebody.
Well, now though...
And Ben Shapiro, I think, told one time, facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
You know, so
facts don't care about your feelings. And the other thing that's fundamentally true is the nature of our political debate has gotten to a point where the radical left almost always accuses conservatives of doing the exact thing they are doing. So who is the fascist? Is it the person that says, let's have an honest and open debate about the nature of the family? Or is it the person that issues death threats against you, which occurred to me on multiple occasions, because you led a fight to define marriage as the union of a man and a woman in California, in North Carolina, in Maine, and we won. We won in state after state. And then for a while I had to have protection because they were issuing death threats against me. And this was real. And now we've seen that all of this has become even more real with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So who are the fascists? Are the fascists the ones that believe in what they believe in truth, are willing to argue about it, do not wish violence on others, do not want harm to anyone, even the ones that they disagree with? Or are they the ones that are the fascists the ones actually encouraging violence? Now, I'm not saying all of the left believes this. What I am saying is there's a significant portion of the hard left in the United States, Antifa, is real, no matter what some people try to say. I've seen them. I've been attacked by them. So don't try and tell me that it's not real. It is real. And they very openly call for violence against fascists. That is their means of being able to do whatever they want to crush us, to not having any morality, and to be willing to do something as occurred, God rest his soul, to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, you were mentioning now Kirk, and you anticipated actually some of my questions I wanted to ask you, because as a president of this organization who is going strongly forward for traditional values and family values, what do you think about the assassination on Charlie Kirk? Is that represent a strong punch on the traditional values in the States? Do you get it in that way? Do you think it's a punch for conservatives and the traditional values, his assassination?
Well, I think that it was obviously a great evil that highlighted the evil that's motivating much of those on the radical left. And I don't think it was a victory in any way for them. It was a horror. What it did was it opened people's eyes up to things that I and others have been saying since at least 2008. We ran our first referenda campaign on marriage as the union of a man and a woman in the state of California. We're talking millions and millions of voters, 60 million. We had 9 million signatures to get this on the ballot. And again, I experienced, that's the beginning of when I saw political violence firsthand. I experienced, again, death threats, physical attacks. The left was going to do anything possible. In the beginning, they laughed at us. They said, you'll never define marriage as the union of the man and a woman within the California Constitution because California is so liberal.
Liberal, yeah.
They were wrong. We won by 52.5% in California. 52.5% in one of the most liberal states. In 2008, we won. And then we had a number of victories after. But what I saw from that victory forward was an increasing willingness on the part of the left to do anything necessary to stop us from winning. And that included violence. And out of that emerged Antifa. You know, Antifa, if you look at any of the discussion boards and interactions between Antifa members, often this whole idea of transgenderism, transgender ideology is a key part of what they're discussing. And it isn't any coincidence that Charlie Kirk's killer was involved in this transgender ideology. He was a part of it. He was in the middle of it. And part of the reason he says in the original confession he wanted to kill Charlie was to stop his evil voice from speaking out on the transgender issue.
We've seen some of the massive killers actually who are transgender. I think in the previous years you had some of the massive shootouts who were done by transgender people.
This is exactly right. The media spent years trying to say there isn't any higher incidence of violence in the transgender community. Then we had mass shooting after mass shooting where there were transgender individuals involved, or those who were openly supporting the ideology of transgenderism and wrote about how this was motivating them. So this is obviously not good for human beings. It's not something that's producing people that are willing and able to take part in a political discussion in a rational and fair manner. Instead, what we're seeing, again, is an increase of political violence. I do think that the Trump administration is doing a lot to tamp this down. What I mean is, if you do this, if you make what's called a true threat in American law, if you write to someone and say, I am going to kill you, I am going to, I believe in free speech, but free speech does not extend to a true threat. It does not extend to me telling you I'm going to kill you and your fear for your life. That is not free speech. That is a true threat. It is against the law, and people who are doing true threats are going to jail. And we have very strong laws protecting our president. People have gone to jail for making true threats on the president's life. So I do think that this violence has backfired in a lot of ways on the left, and a lot of people have woken up in America to the threat that woke ideology creates. And we're seeing more and more people. Elon Musk, who at one time all of the liberals just loved. Elon Musk is now fighting for free speech, saying things that I never expected him to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's so strongly, on X, I've seen, supporting those kind of conservative politics, judging the woke and all the radical left. He's doing all the time, every day. I think he's ideologically in it. He's not doing for any business, for any financial motives or something like that. I think he truly believes in it.
Well, part of the story with Elon is that he had a son who went through this transgender ideology and was mutilated, was on drugs and went through this whole, and now says that he is a she. And Elon thought that at the time that he was listening to experts and that he was doing the right thing in allowing some of this to occur. And he has spoken about this openly. He deeply regrets it. He thinks he's lost a son, and that this woke ideology is a brain virus. It is a mind virus. It has infected people to such a degree.
Through media, through cultural influence and something like that.
And people.
That's not something he was born with.
Right.
Maybe he thinks in that way, but he was actually poisoned through the media, through maybe school, through the society.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a very hard argument to make, to say that this is all happening because people are just born with this. You see the rates of self-identified transgender kids, and the rates over the course of the last 10 years have gone through the roof. It wasn't that they were always there. It was that you go to school and you're taught, hey, are you sure you're not a girl? To a boy. Teachers are promoting this. Again, it's a virus. And that's why I love what Elon is doing in talking about this infection of the woke mind virus, because that really is how it's functioning. And some things that any rational person with a bit of common sense would know as absolutely true. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. This is a simple and fundamental biological reality. And anyone who wants to look in science textbooks from before this woke ideology, anyone who just is aware of the world around them knows this is true. Only a virus in the mind could produce a situation where people believe something that is absolutely contrary to all of their experience and to science. And that's what has happened. That's why it's like you convinced millions of people that 2 + 2 = 5. And no matter what you said to them, it's hard to get them out of that position. I think what Elon has done by being public is he's starting to move people out of this. Maybe not the people that are deepest ideologues, the fanatics, but people who just wanted to be nice. Being nice is good. We all should attempt to be nice, but being nice is not willing to tell a lie because someone's putting pressure on you. That's not being nice. We don't say lies just because the other person wants to hear them.
Yeah, I see you're very optimistic about everything, what's going on and what's be in the future. That's nice to hear. And you mentioned Antifa as an organization, and we have it here in Serbia as well, because that's a form of international organization. It's worldwide spread. And we have also here a part of Serbian civil society organization in Novi Sad called Center for Social Stability. Mm-hmm. And they were like painted the mural for in a wall in the bridge on Belgrade for Charlie Kirk. It says Charlie Kirkovic, because he actually played with Serbs in a basketball team back there in Chicago, I think. He played, and he called himself Kirkovic. So that organization, Center for Social Stability, made murals. But both of them were ruined by Antifa. So what do you think about Antifa as an organization? We see they were like cheering for killing of Charlie Kirk. They like supported it when it happened. Mm-hmm. And what they done here in Serbia like matches with everything they do in the States. Mm-hmm. What do you think about their are they so dangerous? What's their position now actually in the US?
Oh, they're quite dangerous, and it doesn't need to be a highly centralized organization. They have a lot of different cells around the United States. It reminds me in some ways of some of the radical communists who infiltrated the United States, except this is not necessarily coming from outside the United States. It's coming from inside. It's coming from inside our own universities, where this woke ideology is taught, and then people start embracing it, and they look around the world and they want a new Internationale. The Communist Internationale failed, so Antifa replaces it, and it replaces it under the banner of something good and noble in the minds of young people, anti-fascism. And as they...
Is that a form of Western communism? Antifa?
I think that cultural Marxism is now the new form of Marxism. People realize largely that economic Marxism failed, and that now what we're attempting to do is to use some of the same principles, or better, not principles, but failed ideas that came out of the radical French Revolution, which tried to strip down culture, tradition, and religion and attack the church. This goes back to the 1790s. This doesn't start with Marx. Marx, although he had strong criticisms for the French revolutionaries, took up the banner of a new type of ideology that would undermine faith, that would undermine the nation. Obviously, communism is about something international, is about a global revolution. Instead, that's now being applied instead of applying it to class, now what we have are race and sex, and primarily sex, anything having to do with the family. So Antifa, if you look again, is strongly motivated on these issues of the redefinition of marriage, on the breakdown of the family, on the transgender issue. Now, of course, there's still some communist economic theory. You still see, flags of the hammer and sickle waved at the No Kings protest that recently happened. But that's so far outside of American experience that people just laugh at that. That's not the threat of...
They're supporting communism with their iPhones.
Exactly.
or other capitalist products.
The danger with Antifa is that it is real. It has given a false illusion of a cause worth dying for. Anti-fascist. I'm anti-fascist, and all of these people that are oppressing me are fascists, and I'm going to be a part of setting the world on fire for a greater good in the future. This is what always unites these radical revolutionaries, whether of the economic kind or the cultural kind. They believe that they can strip down everything, that the order that exists, that if only they could strip down the order that exists, that they can bring some sort of heaven to earth. What they basically are is a form of Christian heresy. They don't even know it. They don't have to believe in Christianity, but they come out of it, and what they're doing is embracing aspects of the Christian view of what we're made for, what our purpose and end is, and trying to bring them to earth. So they're wrapping themselves up in anti-fascism, and that gives them the right to mock and encourage the death of someone like Charlie Kirk, because he's the other, he's the fascist. Anyone they don't like is the enemy, and they're allowed to engage in violence. The only correction for this, false mercy to criminals is the greatest injustice. The only correction to this is anything that any sort of group like Antifa does that is organized terror, they are thrown in jail. They are punished. Examples must be made. You are not allowed to run roughshod over the rights of all of the rest of your citizens. In this example, you have a right to put up a mural. You put the mural up, and then Antifa intentionally defaces it. Well, they should be held accountable. That's what we've seen in the United States. We've seen an increased from the FBI, great changes where now Antifa is deemed a domestic terror network, and they can be... They
are now a terrorist organization, right?
Exactly.
Declared.
So this changes everything. Again, this is, I believe in 100% freedom of association, freedom of speech, different political parties, as long as you don't engage in or encourage violence, true threats. You don't engage in criminality. You don't engage in terror. Once you do that, no more. You're going to jail. We're going to find you. And I think that is...
There are the restrictions of First Amendment. What you said, right?
It's not under the First Amendment. Again, free speech does not mean that I can go into a crowded movie theater and scream fire. It doesn't mean that I can walk up to you and say, I'm going to kill you right now. That is not under our free speech. So yes, there are reasonable limits. I want speech to be, I want the ability to debate ideas. I want the ability to debate different perspectives. And that's what the First Amendment protects. It does not protect violence or the threats of violence. So that is a great thing that Trump has done. The third thing is number one, pushing this. We talked about the election reform, the Save America Act. That's a very big deal. Number two, being willing to punish Antifa and to make clear what they're doing. A third thing is probably one of the most important, and that's defunding USAID. USAID was a front for supporting groups like Antifa, the Open Society Foundation. I travel the world. I've been to all of these different countries. In Georgia, I know that many of the left-wing organizations, they can't exist without USAID and Open Society Foundation funding. And by removing that, you're starting to see that it's having impact on these groups don't have the funding that they used to have. So that's another great advance that we're seeing from the administration.
Nice. I saw an interesting video on X platform where you stated in some Serbian kafana, I would say, that Kosovo is Serbia. Yeah. So maybe we could check it out together.
Okay.
I'm in Serbia. I have one thing to say. Kosovo is Serbia.
So, is that just a statement, or do you believe in that? What is your political view on the Kosovo issue, Kosovo and Metohija actually? being part of Serbia and actually being took away from Serbia in the war of 1999, in the aggression on Serbia, actually?
Well, I'm familiar. I was trained as a historian, and I'm familiar with the history of Serbia, and I'm familiar with the Battle of Kosovo. I'm familiar with how Kosovo is a spiritual, the spiritual heart of Serbia, and I do not believe that what we should be doing is taking territory from countries and giving it to other countries or creating new countries out of the blue. My view is not unknown. Many conservatives understand, looking back at what occurred in the 90s and beyond, that it was wrong. And countries understand this too. There are a number of countries that don't recognize Kosovo as an independent state, including Spain and a number of other countries. So,
in Europe, 5 countries actually in Europe.
So it's what I believe. And I love Serbians. We may have any individual Serb I may have disagreements with, but I think that it's important to stand up for what you believe. So if a few people get upset at me, which has happened on
probably from Twitter, the region, right? From other countries.
Not from Serbia.
Of course.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe Bosnia, Croatia, or Albania, of course.
Well, I think there have been some Albanian tweets that people could see for themselves. I prefer not to translate them because I know the sorts of words.
But I saw they attack you on X.
Yeah. But that's fine. I mean,
in the comments,
we have the right. I have the right. We all have the right to have our own views on issues like this. And my view, I always try and tell the truth. I think truth is of the utmost importance in our lives and debate. I think one of the evils of communism was to attempt to force people to live a lie, and I'm not going to live a lie. That's what I believe. I'm going to say it. And one of the beauties of X now is that we're allowed to do it. And again, Elon Musk has done a great good, because for things that would get you shut down, just saying, Kosovo je Serbia, that might have gotten you shut down 10, 15 years ago. Now we're allowed to do it. And I don't know a single Serb that wouldn't agree with that statement. And you should be allowed to say it.
Yeah, we all agree on that.
Yeah.
I think we all agree. I hope so. But have you visited Kosovo and Metohija?
Unfortunately not. I had planned to go years ago, and I have not yet been able to go, but I do plan on going.
Yeah, you should. There are a lot of beautiful Serbian monasteries, the oldest ones from 13th, 14th century.
Yeah, I can't wait to go.
A lot of Serbian heritage. I mean, that's like a cradle of Serbian nation on Kosovo and Metohija. That's why we care so much for it, because unfortunately today there's not a lot of Serbs, because they were expelled, most of them even murdered through 19th, 20th century, through Ottoman Empire and the occupation, and later to communism actually. And you stated out well, because Tito actually allowed Albanians a lot to force out Serbs out of Kosovo and expel them. So that was the, primer form of problem for that question.
Yeah, I was blessed to be able to take a trip to Hilandar on Mount Athos, the Serbian monastery, and I was blessed to be able to meet Abbot Methodia and have some discussion there. And after that, I said, well, my next place I want to go to is Kosovo. But obviously, with 9 children and traveling as much as I do, I've not been able to do it. But in the next year, I'm going to figure out a way to go.
Great. Nice to hear that. Yeah. So, Brian, I'm afraid we don't have much time left. And for the last question, because today is Orthodox Christian Easter in Serbia, what would be your message for the Serbian people here who are celebrating the resurrection of Son of our Lord, Jesus Christ?
Well, embrace who you are. As a very deeply Christian nation, embrace who you are. Personally, most importantly, don't have any fear about being a Christian. Christ is risen today. That is a message of optimism. That is a message of hope. We are pilgrims in this world. This life does not last forever, and it's important that while we are here, that we attempt to do everything we can to be good Christians, to do what we should do, to live our lives in such a way that even if it's difficult, and even if some of Christ's sayings are, as Paul said, contradictions to the world, and make our lives a bit more difficult, our saints have suffered far more. Your saints have suffered far more. The Serbian people have been heroes with saints that have been willing to die for their nation. So if you stand up and defend the family, or you defend life, or you defend the Christian faith, take it as a great badge of honor if you're persecuted or attacked, or people say a few bad names about you on Twitter. It's a very small thing to suffer through when we know what our Lord suffered through and conquered on Easter. So Christ is risen. God bless Serbia.
Yeah, Christ is risen. Thank you for this inspirational message. I agree upon everything you said, and thank you a lot for the kind words to our people, and thanks again for participating in my show. Hopefully I'll see you again here in Novi Sad and Serbia as well, and wish you all the best in your work.
Thank you so much.
Vama hvala, poštovani gledalci, na praćenju. Ovo je bila još jedna epizoda Novo Doba. Moje ime je Aleksa Grubešić. Ovo je bio fantastičan gost Brajan Braun iz Međunarodne organizacije za porodicu Vašingtona, Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. Vi svakako ostanite uz dokumentarnu televiziju. Do sljedećeg viđenja.